Hey, this is Rick from For Community, creating community spaces so you can connect with others and also with God. Funny illustration, I hope you think it's funny anyways. I have often brought my daughters to little girl birthday parties. You know, when you're a parent and you got girls or boys, and you always get these birthday invites. And then you have to respond to them because it creates a friendship, and you have to go to every single one of them. And I think they're awesome. I think they're wonderful. I like our daughters going to them, and my son when he was that small, and I like going to them. It's just all fun, right? However, I have often been the one to take my little girls to little girl birthday parties. Awkward, because typically what happens when parents go to little girl birthday parties, it's often the mom going to little girl birthday parties, and then they all get to socialize together while the little girls do their thing. But then enter the daddy, and the daddy wants to hang around just in case there's any kind of help that needs to. And then the daddy, me, I'm like, this is pretty awkward. Nobody's trying to socialize with me. I feel like an outsider. I feel like a misfit. I'm like, what in the world am I doing here? I'm just going to stand off in a corner or sit down somewhere, just keep to myself, because I have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing in this moment as the moms are doing all their social kind of thing, and I'm just kind of sitting there like a creeper kind of thing, right? Just totally awkward, right? Have you ever been in a moment where you were so different that connecting with others was almost impossible and you felt really awkward about it? If you're watching this video with someone, pause the video and share your story of that moment where you felt awkward in some kind of social setting. I've noticed that feeling awkward around other people is a pretty common experience for so many. In our text today, Jesus talks about being different. He talks about what the social norm seems to be in the world, and actually it's his disciples that were demonstrating how negative that norm can be sometimes. And then he gives his disciples a heads up about what they can do to minimize their negative experience and have better interactions with other people. Our text for this video is Mark chapter 10, verses 35 to 45. Then James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came over and spoke to him. Teacher, they said, we want you to do us a favor. What is your request? He asked. Jesus asked. They replied, when you sit on your glorious throne, we want to sit in places of honor next to you, one on your right and the other on your left. But Jesus said to them, you don't know what you're asking. Are you able to drink from the bitter cup of suffering I'm about to drink? Are you able to be baptized with the baptism of suffering I must be baptized with? Oh, yes, they replied, we are able. Then Jesus told them, you will indeed drink from my bitter cup and be baptized with my baptism of suffering, but I have no right to say who will sit on my right or my left. God has prepared those places for the ones he has chosen. When the 10 other disciples heard what James and John had asked, they were indignant. So Jesus called them together and said, you know that the rulers in this world lord it over their people, and officials flaunt their authority over those under them. But among you, it will be different. Whoever wants to be leader among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be the first among you must be the slave of everyone. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Hey kids, keep your eyes in the background to see if there are any characters hidden in the back there. Also keep your eyes on the animation. Let us know what you thought of the video, and also please remember to watch this week's episode of Connect HQ. Here's the point of this video. I think this text tells us to be different. In part, this isn't a normal day that we see in the text here. People don't often get the chance to go up to Jesus and ask if they can be the boss of everyone in the whole world, starting with their closest friends. And then I'm sure lots of people would pray something like that, but we all are not privileged with having Jesus right beside us to give us that physical answer of saying no. But in part, this is also really normal day stuff. You know, we do see people who prefer being in a one-up relationship with others rather than being in some kind of equal partnership, equal friendship. That's what Jesus is addressing in this text as I see it. In the case where the world's norm is to push people down and really offer them a really lousy experience. Be different than that. So what do you do when you're in a one-up relationship with people? And what do you do when you're in a one-down relationship with people? Here's how I see it. Here's what I think this text is saying. Be different. The part of the text I'm specifically referring to here is, you know that the rulers in this world lord it over their people, and officials flaunt their authority over those under them, but among you it will be different. Here's a small illustration to set up this idea. When I initially started into full-time psychotherapy school, I had some trouble connecting with the other students who many of them tended to have a psychology undergrad. I didn't. I had a Bible undergrad. And then they also were furthering their education in master's level, where we're all at, with psychotherapy. I noticed I was having trouble connecting with the other students. We're all roughly the same age. I mean, I'm one of the older people in the classroom, I think, but generally we're all adults. I couldn't figure out what was going on. I tried to talk different. I tried to be less engaging sometimes, more engaging other times. I tried to be chill. I tried to be up in people's faces. I had no idea why we just weren't clicking. And then suddenly, through some conversations, I finally got that aha moment to figure out what was going on. I've been pastoring for almost 30 years. That's where my language is coming from. That's my context. That's the kinds of stuff that I like to talk about. But I was pretty much alone. I was in an environment where there were no pastors. The rest of my class pretty much were not interested in pastoring. They didn't understand the context. They don't speak the lingo. We were speaking two different languages. So I had to become different. To value the people around me, I needed to change their experience of me in order for us to work together, which actually put me in a one-down scenario because I didn't have a lot to say. As we're looking at this passage, I want us to start to look at what Jesus has to say, and then I'd like us to look to see how this affects us and what this means for how we live out our normal every single day. What Jesus just saw in his disciples is what Jesus was seeing every day in the rest of the normal world. People want places of power because they want to use their power to change the relationships around them. There's no desire to engage as equals, just not a lot. The desire is to engage as people of power who demand the respect of others. That was the norm. It's like this narcissistic, self-centered, kind of oppressive presentation of who people are. Jesus is like, okay, now hold on a minute. That's not what I want things to be like. If we're going to do this right, I need to teach you something about love. I need to teach you something about what different is. Love doesn't look like the way the rest of the world engages everyone based on some kind of pecking order. Love looks different. But to know what love really looks like requires you to get out of the center of discussion and put others there instead. It requires you to get out of the limelight of your life and put others at the center of your life instead. So Jesus turns this whole authority thing on its head and tells us that it's not a noble goal. There's something else worth pursuing, and that thing that's worth pursuing doesn't fit with what is normal. Okay, fine. We all experience normal very differently. I mean, I'm confident that my normal, with 4 kids, full-time grad school, leading for community, I'm confident that that's not your normal. That's not a lot of people's normal. All of our normals are different, and all of our normals should be different because we all are different. So let's look at this based on your experience of normal. First, what's the norm? A top-down, telling, demanding, commanding, dominating dictatorship. Is that the norm? Okay, so maybe. But I honestly don't think that's the norm that the text is pointed to. I think the focus is on how others experience their interaction with you. To say the norm is like a dictatorship, a top-down, demanding, and all the rest, well, that keeps you at the center of the discussion. And I think that that's Jesus' point here, is to get out of the center of discussion. I think the point here is that the normal is you at the center of the stage. So the question is, what would it look like for you not to be at the center of the stage? That would be different. Here's some normal. In day-to-day life, we can expect people to be working on themselves, trying to get ahead, working for promotions, working toward A's, working toward some kind of goal. That is all okay. Success is okay. Working towards success is okay. That's not the topic here. Even working into positions of authority, that's okay. It's not the topic here. Here's what Jesus is pointing out as not normal. This flaunting thing over others, okay, that's normal, so don't do that. If you don't flaunt your position of authority over others, okay, that's not normal, and that's the difference that Jesus wants to see. It's focusing on the people interaction, that we do the very best that we can, yet we continue to interact with other people, keeping them at the center and valuing them. When we're interacting with people, are we lifting them up or pushing them down? Are we helping them become better, or are we keeping them down? When we interact with others, what is their experience of us? And here is the heart of being different, trying to figure out what others' experience of us is and trying to make that experience better for them. This is the unnormal thing, knowing how others are experiencing you. I know how I experience others all the time. I'm always in my head. I always know what I feel. When people come at me, I always know, what's going on in the inside here. What I don't often know is how others are experiencing me. The difference that Jesus is pointing out here is get ourselves out of center stage. Forget about how we're experiencing other people. Instead, get our heads in the game where we're asking the question, how are other people experiencing us in this moment? It's knowing how others experience you, and that then changing that experience of you for them. This part is really hard, to figure out what we can keep and what we need to change. We need to get out of ourselves, and we need to get into the lived experience of the other people around us who are interacting with us. That means we need to lay our own intentions down. We need to lay aside our plans. We need to lay ourselves down and ask the hard question, if I were that other person, what am I experiencing when I'm interacting with them? I got another illustration here that might actually help demonstrate my point here. When I was younger, a couple of my friends and I, we went to this tobogganing hill. There were a couple of adults there with us as well. And nobody was really caring what my experience was at that moment. All my friends who had these really great toboggans and these really great people helping them out, they all had a great experience. I was not having a good experience. I didn't have one of those really cool sleds. I had a broken down wooden sled that was falling apart and was dangerous, and I wasn't having fun, and I wanted to get out of that moment, but nobody else around me could figure out how I was experiencing that moment. They didn't really care. So we're at the top of the hill. We all get pushed down. My friends are banging into me, knocking me off course. I have no control at all. And my wooden sled, ended up going straight into a fence. I hit that fence face first. And I broke, I had a hairline fracture, something like that, a couple of vertebrae in my back. It was a horrible experience. Nobody in that moment stopped to consider how I was experiencing them. They were all in their own heads figuring out how they were experiencing me, and they didn't care that I was saying, I'm not sure I really like this. My toboggan is not good for this. Okay, so that's just a simple illustration. Painful. I still remember all of that, but it's a simple illustration for me to just make this point out. Others' experience of you is different than your experience of them. So when Jesus calls us to be different, it's not a call that we can answer by staying inside of ourselves. The only way to answer that call is by engaging with others to find out how others are experiencing us. The different that we need to be is the different that people around us are asking for. If they're saying we're mean, then we ask them something like, well, what does mean look like for you? And what would being unmean look like? If they're saying we're being unfriendly, then we ask, okay, well, what does being unfriendly look like for you? And what would friendliness look like for you? It's not about living according to other people's expectations. Not at all. But it's about valuing other people and valuing their relationship with you. Because at the end of the day, there are no bosses, there are no employees, there are no kids, there are no adults, there are no rich people, there are no poor people. There are no longer those with authority and those without. At the end of the day, it's all about all of us equally sharing in a family and friendship with Jesus. All of us are the ones without authority, And Jesus has full authority over all of us and everything. Jesus uses his authority by laying down his life and sacrificing for us and asking the question, what is your experience of me? And how can I help you to have a better experience of me? Can we take a moment and find the answer to the question, what is your experience of me like? And what can I do to be more like Jesus for you? Here's how I'd like to summarize everything so far. Different looks like what Jesus modeled. He modeled servanthood. Jesus is God. He didn't demand you to act differently so that his experience of you would meet his expectations for you. Rather, he chose to serve you so that you could actually experience him. We were so disconnected from God that we could not experience God in any healthy way at all. So Jesus changed that by becoming a person. And as a person, figuring out what it meant to be human and then serving us so that our experience of God could change. We don't experience God as a judge now. We experience God as a friend, as family. God took himself away from center stage, if you could believe it, but he truly did it. And he put you on center stage so that he could discover how you really experience him and how he could help you experience him better. He served you. He's the model here. He's the awesome model that we're trying to be like. Here's the takeaway. To be different. Discover how others experience you, then serve them by offering the best presentation of you that you can for them. Now, I'm hoping that there are a lot of points you don't entirely agree with me on. I'm hoping that you see this text differently because I am really looking forward to connecting this week on Zoom. If you're not yet connecting with a community, if you've lost your community that you were connecting with, can I just encourage you to reach out? I've got a Zoom link that I could share with you, and I'd love to connect and love to engage and really love to hear from you. So that's it from me to you for now. For community, creating community spaces so you can connect with others and also with God. See you next time.